The new roommate from another world, Jason, had always lived alone. His small apartment near the intergalactic university was quiet and clean. He liked it that way. He was a simple human, studying engineering and trying to stay out of trouble. But everything changed one morning when he got a message from the school office. A new alien student will be your roommate. Her name is Zira of Lorexis Prime. Be kind. She's new to Earth culture. Jason read the message twice. A girl, he whispered. He had no choice. Housing was full, and the school had placed her with him. That evening, the doorbell rang. Jason opened the door and stopped breathing. She was tall, taller than him, with smooth, glowing skin that shimmered softly in the dim light. Her eyes were large, violet, and deep. Her hair floated behind her like soft wires of light. She wore a dark green robe that looked like it came from a fantasy book. She looked part alien, part angel. "I am Zira," she said gently, her voice like music. "I have been told this is now my home." Jason nodded, too stunned to speak. Yeah. Come in." She stepped inside, looking around the room with curiosity. She bent low to sniff the couch, then tapped the TV like it was alive. Jason tried not to stare, but it wasn't easy. Zira placed her bag in the guest room and came back holding a strange metal device. "This is your cleaning tool?" she asked, showing him his electric toothbrush. Jason laughed. "No, that's for teeth. You brush with it." Her eyes widened. "How often?" "Twice a day," he said. Zira blinked, then carefully put it back. That night, Jason couldn't sleep. His new roommate was from another planet. She seemed kind but very curious. He didn't know how to act around her. The next day, things got stranger. Zira didn't seem to understand the concept of private space. She walked around freely, even when Jason was in the bathroom brushing his teeth. She would sometimes open doors without knocking. She said on her world, walls were made of light and everyone could see each other at all times. Jason tried to explain human culture. "We like space, alone time. We knock before entering." Zira tilted her head. "Why do humans hide? Are you ashamed of your form?" Jason blushed. "No, it's just, we're taught to be decent." She nodded slowly but clearly didn't understand. Then one night everything changed. Jason had just taken a shower. He had forgotten to lock his bedroom door. He walked out of the bathroom with only a towel, steam following him, thinking Zira was in the kitchen. She wasn't. She had just entered his room, holding a data pad, ready to ask a question, and she saw him. Jason froze. Zira froze. They stared at each other for a long moment. Her eyes slowly moved across his body, then back to his face. Her expression didn't show shock, but something else. Curiosity. Thought. And something Jason couldn't name. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just whispered, "I see." Then she turned and gently closed the door behind her. Jason stood there, heart pounding, unsure what just happened. The next day, everything felt different. Zira was quiet at breakfast. She didn't ask her usual 10 questions about toast or juice. Jason tried to act normal, but his hands shook slightly. Then, Zira looked up and said softly, "Your form is not unpleasant." Jason nearly choked on his coffee. "What?" "Your body. It is warm, strong. I saw energy in your skin." He didn't know what to say. She smiled faintly. "On my world, we do not hide from each other. But I will respect your customs now. I have learned something." From that moment, Zira began to act differently. She still asked questions, but fewer. She still stared at him sometimes, but not in the same way. Her gaze was softer, thoughtful. Jason didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing. The moment she saw him had changed something between them, and whatever it was, it had just begun. Zira had stopped asking questions about Earth food and strange human habits. Now her questions were different. quiet, personal. "Why do humans hide their skin when they feel strong emotions?" she asked one evening. Jason, sitting on the couch with a book in his lap, looked up, confused. "You mean blushing?" Zira nodded slowly. "Your cheeks become warm. Your heartbeat rises. Is that fear?" Jason chuckled. "No. That usually means embarrassment. Or sometimes attraction." She didn't speak after that, but her eyes stayed on his face longer than before. Something between them had shifted after the night she walked in on him by accident. Jason hadn't forgotten it. And from the way Zira acted, neither had she. He tried to treat her like before, like a roommate, a friend. But Zira had become quieter, more careful. She started avoiding the common room when he was shirtless or fresh from the shower. She still smiled, but it was softer now, as if something was always on her mind. One afternoon, Jason came home early and found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, humming in a low, soft voice. Her skin pulsed lightly with silver light. When she opened her eyes and saw him, she stood quickly. "I was centering myself." Jason smiled. "Meditation?" Zira nodded. "In a way, I am calming the bond." "The what?" Jason blinked. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past him and went to her room. Later that night, Zira appeared at his door holding 2 cups. "Would you like to try Lurexian tea?" she asked. Jason took the cup. "Sure." They sat across from each other on the floor, legs folded. The tea was warm and had a soft floral taste. "Jason," she began, "on my world, seeing someone's body when emotions are high creates something called a soul glance. It's rare. It begins a process." He stared at her. "What kind of process?" She looked at him, her voice low. "Bonding. Not just physical. Deeper. Our minds, our energy, begin to pull toward the other." Jason shifted uncomfortably. "Are you saying that's happening now? Between us?" Zira's eyes didn't blink. "Yes." Jason set the cup down. "But we're just roommates. That was an accident." "I know. That is why I've tried to stop it. But it is not easy. My body reacts, my thoughts drift, and I feel things when I am near you." Jason didn't know what to say. His heart was racing. He felt warm all over. Zira stood, her robe falling around her like water. "I will ask the housing unit to move. It may be the only way to stop this." Jason stood too. "Wait." She paused, eyes wide. "I don't want you to leave," he said, softly. "I don't know what this bond is, but maybe we don't have to run from it." Zira looked at him carefully as if reading the truth in his eyes. "I am afraid," she whispered. "Not of you, of what this means. For me. For you." Jason stepped closer. "Then don't be alone in it." They didn't touch. Not yet. But something passed between them, gentle and real. A connection, not forced by culture or rules, but born from shared moments, awkward silences, and strange understanding. Zira didn't move. Her eyes softened. "If we allow this bond to grow, there may be no return." Jason nodded. "Then let's make sure we're walking the same way." That night, they didn't talk more. They simply sat near each other, not touching, just close. 2 lives, once from different stars, now moving quietly toward something unknown. Since the bond between them had quietly taken root, nothing felt the same. Jason found himself waiting for her voice in the mornings, listening for her soft footsteps in the hallway. He wasn't sure when her presence had become a part of his daily rhythm, but now, every moment felt slightly off when she wasn't near. Zira, too, had changed in subtle ways. She no longer walked with quiet curiosity. Her steps were slower, more thoughtful, as if each one carried the weight of something she hadn't said yet. She still asked questions, but now her tone had softened. Instead of studying Earth, she seemed to be studying him. One afternoon, while Jason worked at his desk, he noticed a small device left near the couch. It looked like a piece of Zyra's home tech, but it was blinking gently. When he picked it up, it projected a small glowing image of Zyra's world. Twin moons over violet skies, tall glass-like trees swaying in alien wind. He watched silently until the image faded. When Zyra returned later, he asked, "Is that what home looks like?" She nodded. "That's the place I was born, but it doesn't feel like home anymore." Jason looked at her with quiet surprise. "Why not?" She hesitated, then replied, "Because the bond has changed me. It's not just a feeling. It's something deeper, something my kind can't ignore." He waited, sensing she had more to say. "Our species. We're taught that once this bond begins, it must be completed, or broken. But if we try to ignore it, the body becomes unstable, thoughts become clouded, the mind starts to forget itself." Jason felt a chill despite the warm air. "You mean it's dangerous?" She looked down. "Yes, emotionally and physically. That's why most bonds on my world are carefully chosen, planned, safe. But this, what we have, isn't planned. It began in a way no one would approve of." Jason leaned back, thinking carefully. He didn't know what it meant to carry an alien bond, but he knew how he felt. When Zyra was around, the world seemed calmer. His worries shrank. Her laughter lingered in his memory long after it faded. "You said the bond could be broken," he said slowly. Zyra's gaze hardened slightly. "Yes, but it would hurt both of us." Jason stood in silence, unsure of which path was more dangerous, continuing something they didn't fully understand, or ending something that had already become a part of them. Then, as if sensing his doubt, Zyra added, "I don't want to forget you." The words landed softly but firmly, like a stone dropped into still water. Jason looked at her and knew. Whatever this was, it was no longer small. It had grown quietly into something neither of them had words for over the next few days. They didn't speak much about the bond, but their actions changed. Jason started leaving the kettle on for her favorite drink. Zyra began adjusting the light levels in the room just the way he liked. They began to move in sync, not out of habit, but out of quiet care. Then one morning, Jason found a small message on his desk, written in Zyra's careful handwriting. "If I must face the change, I'd rather do it with you beside me." He stared at the words for a long time. They weren't romantic, not exactly. But they carried more meaning than any poem or speech he had ever heard. The bond wasn't just between body and body. It was between understanding and choice, between fear and trust. And though neither of them had planned for this future, it was already unfolding. One moment, one breath, one silent promise at a time. Zyra began to change in ways even she couldn't explain. Her senses sharpened. She could hear Jason's footsteps before he entered the room, feel his emotions before he spoke. Her skin grew warmer, her thoughts harder to control. She stopped going to lectures. Her body ached in waves she couldn't soothe. But she didn't tell Jason everything. Not yet. Jason noticed the change. Her glow, once soft and steady, now flickered. She stared at nothing for long stretches. Sometimes she'd start a sentence, then forget what she was saying. He asked her if she was sick. She smiled and said she was fine. But her voice shook. He wanted to believe her, but he knew better. Late one evening, Zyra sat curled up in the corner of the room, her head resting on her knees. Jason brought her a cup of warm broth, but she didn't reach for it. "I don't want you to see me like this," she whispered. "Like what?" he asked gently. "Changing." Jason knelt beside her. "Tell me what's happening." She was silent for a moment, then said, "The bond has entered the final stage. My body believes I've chosen a mate, and now it's preparing." Jason felt the words hit like thunder. "Preparing? For what?" "For completion," she said. "It's not just emotional anymore. My instincts want closeness, touch, Unity. If it doesn't happen, the process might damage me. Jason's heart pounded. He never meant to hurt her. He never meant for this to happen. I didn't choose this, he said. I know, she replied. Neither did I. But now we both must decide. The air grew heavy between them. Jason stood and paced. You're saying if we don't finish this bond, you could suffer? Zira nodded slowly. It's already begun. I'm trying to hold it back, but soon I won't be able to. Jason felt anger rise, not at her, but at the universe. At the fact that a single accident could lead to something so deep, so permanent. You should have told me sooner. I didn't want to pressure you, Zira said softly. But I'm running out of time. Jason leaned against the wall, his mind racing. His feelings for Zira weren't just curiosity anymore. He cared about her, deeply. But the idea of being bound forever, especially to someone from another world, terrified him. Still, he couldn't ignore the truth. He couldn't let her break, alone. After a long silence, he turned to her and spoke. Then we'll figure this out together. I don't know what it means to complete a bond your way, but I know what it means to stay by someone's side when they need you. Zira looked up. Her eyes, though tired, glowed softly with relief. Even if you don't feel it fully? Jason walked over and sat beside her. I feel enough to stay, enough to try, and maybe that's how it starts. Zira didn't move, but her breathing slowed. The tension in her shoulders began to fade. They sat together in silence once more. Two souls caught between choice and fate, learning that sometimes love doesn't begin with certainty, but with the courage to stay when things grow hard. ChatGPT said the days grew quieter, heavier. The bond between Jason and Zira no longer hid in the background. It pressed against every hour, unspoken but deeply felt. Jason tried to keep life normal, but normal had already slipped through his fingers. He was sharing space with someone who had, without asking, become a part of his every thought. Zira's condition was harder to ignore now. Her glow flickered, more often, and she walked slower, as if her body struggled with every step. Jason stayed near her, preparing her favorite drinks, keeping the lights low, asking gentle questions he knew she wouldn't always answer. She would smile sometimes, but there was tiredness in her eyes that worried him more than anything. Then one afternoon, the silence broke, with a knock at the door. Jason opened it to find two tall figures standing outside. Not human, not friendly. Their robes were metallic and shimmered like molten glass. Their faces were sharp, emotionless, and their presence filled the room with quiet force. One of them spoke without greeting. We have come for Zira of Lorex's Prime. Jason stepped back in surprise. She's not well. She needs rest. She has formed a bond, one that was not authorized. She must return home. Before Jason could reply, Zira entered the room behind him. Her voice was soft but clear. You came faster than I expected. The taller figure nodded. You should not have allowed the bond to grow. The council warned you of the dangers. I didn't plan it, Zira said, her expression calm. But I will not undo it now. The second envoy looked at Jason with unreadable eyes. You are the human? Jason nodded. I didn't know what was happening, but I'm not going to let her face this alone. The bond is irreversible once complete, the envoy said. But if you refuse, the consequences fall on her. Pain, memory loss, emotional collapse. Her body will not accept another. Jason felt his chest tighten. So you're saying if I walk away, she suffers forever? Yes. Zira stepped forward. That's why I wanted to go quietly. I didn't want to force you into anything. Jason looked at her. Really looked. This was no longer just about a strange connection or a cultural misunderstanding. This was a moment that would decide the shape of both their lives. He spoke without hesitation. I won't let you suffer for something we built together. The envoys exchanged glances. You would accept her as your bonded mate? Jason nodded. I already have, in my heart, even if I don't understand. Everything, yet I know I don't want to live without her. Zira's eyes filled with quiet light, not the glow of her skin, but something deeper, something alive with emotion. The envoys didn't smile, but after a pause, the taller one said, "Then the council will be informed. Your choice carries weight. It will affect more than just your lives." Jason took Zira's hand. "Let them be affected." The visitors left as quickly as they arrived, disappearing into the sky without another word. The air in the apartment felt lighter afterward, as if a storm had passed but left the ground forever changed. That evening, Zira sat beside Jason on the couch, their hands still loosely linked. "I didn't expect you to say that," she whispered. "I didn't expect to mean it," he replied, "until I did." They didn't need more words. The bond had already spoken. What began as an accident had turned into a promise neither of them planned, but neither could deny. The days following Jason's bold decision passed without warning or rhythm. It was as if time itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if the bond between a human and an alien would survive not only the biological pull, but the pressure of two worlds watching. Zira was quiet, yet no longer burdened. Her steps were slower, but steady. The glow that once flickered with imbalance now pulsed softly, peacefully. Jason could sense it too. The storm within her had eased, not vanished, but quieted, because he stayed. In the stillness of their small home, something new began, something unspoken, but deeply real. Zira no longer watched Jason with guarded eyes. She smiled more, laughed softly at his sarcasm. Sometimes, she simply sat beside him, their shoulders touching, neither needing to say a word. But beyond those walls, the galaxy had started to listen. News of their bond had traveled beyond the university. Rumors turned to reports, reports turned to questions, and questions soon reached places Jason never thought would care about one quiet connection in a small apartment. Then, without warning, a transmission came. It wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. Jason stood frozen, reading the lines again and again. "The Lurexian Cultural Tribunal requests your presence. You are to speak before the Elders of Union. Your bond will be examined, evaluated, and judged." He looked up at Zira, unsure what to say, but she had already read it over his shoulder. Her voice was calm. "They want to know if we're real." Jason frowned. "After everything, they still doubt it?" "They don't understand love without planning," she said quietly. "They believe all deep connection must be arranged, approved, and protected by rules." Jason clenched his fists. "But we didn't ask for this. It found us. That should be enough." Zira reached for his hand. "Then we show them." They prepared not with speeches or evidence, but with honesty. Jason asked her to teach him the formal phrases of her people. Zira helped him understand their customs, their traditions, their fears. And together, they traveled to the tribunal. The chamber was vast, silent, and heavy with history. Jason stood beside Zira as 5 elders, each cloaked in shifting light, stared down at them from tall stone seats. One elder finally spoke. "State your purpose." Jason's voice didn't waver. "We did not come to ask for approval. We came because we were summoned. And if you must see our bond, then see it for what it is, real, chosen, unforced, and complete." The elders didn't react. Another spoke. "You risked dishonor, exile, and collapse for a connection born from an accidental sighting. Why?" Jason didn't flinch. "Because it didn't end there. It grew. We chose each other. And we continue to choose each other every single day." Then Zira stepped forward. She said nothing for a moment. Then she looked up and said, "This is what happens when love is not built by rules, but by trust." The elders didn't speak for a long time, and then slowly one of them rose. "She has not faded. Her body is whole. Her mind is clear," the elder said. "You did not break her. You helped her survive the pull." The chamber buzzed faintly, with energy. "Your bond," the elder continued. Stands. Zyra took Jason's hand in hers. They were not celebrated. There was no grand applause. But as they left, no one stopped them. No one questioned them again. And sometimes peace is more powerful than praise. Back home, they returned to the life they had made, not as rebels, not as a warning, but as something quietly permanent. The galaxy would move on, as it always did. But in their small corner of it, a human and an alien had rewritten the rules simply by staying true to something that didn't need permission to exist. And from that moment forward, their bond didn't just survive the storm. It became a shelter. Time moved forward, but the bond between Jason and Zyra had already taken its place beyond time. What began with a quiet accident had grown into something neither of them could walk away from. It wasn't just about feelings anymore. It was about belonging, not to a place, not to a species, but to each other. Their small apartment, once just a space to share, now felt like a shared life. Jason would wake and find Zyra already sitting by the window, her eyes watching the stars even in daylight. He never asked what she saw in them. He only knew her gaze seemed more peaceful now, as if the chaos inside her had finally found stillness. They laughed more, talked less. But when they did speak, their words carried weight. One quiet morning, Zyra turned to him while he was preparing breakfast and said, "My people believe the heart chooses before the mind understands. I didn't believe that. Until you." Jason paused, a half-cut fruit in his hand. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he walked over and gently touched her cheek, his thumb tracing the faint shimmer under her skin. "I didn't believe in fate," he replied, "but you made me question everything I thought I knew." Their connection had become unshakable, yet not loud or dramatic. It lived in small choices, the way Jason leaned closer without meaning to, the way Zyra's hand found his without thought, in the way their breathing often matched without either of them noticing. But even peace had its moments of test. One day, a message arrived. This time, it wasn't from Zyra's world or the university. It came from the Intergalactic Council. The message was brief but clear. "Your union is being reviewed. Your case will influence future human-alien relationships." Jason read it aloud, then looked up at Zyra. She didn't flinch. "They're afraid," she said, "of change, of what we represent." Jason nodded. "So, what do we do?" Zyra gave a small, calm smile. "We live." And that's what they did. They didn't hide, they didn't argue. They simply continued living openly, honestly. They showed kindness to those who looked confused, patience to those who judged, and silence to those who gossiped. Over time, people began to see the truth, that theirs wasn't a story of rebellion, it was a story of quiet love, one that didn't need permission to exist. The whispers faded, questions stopped. The council's review was never followed up, and in that space of silence, they thrived. Seasons changed, leaves turned and fell. On one clear evening, Jason and Zyra stood outside their apartment under a sky full of stars. Jason looked at her and asked, "Do you ever miss your world?" Zyra took a long breath. "Sometimes, but only when I forget that I found my home here." Jason reached for her hand and she let him. In that moment, under the same stars she once traveled through to get here, they both knew. This was never just a story about an accident or a bond forced by instinct. It was a choice. To understand, to accept, to love, not as alien and human, but as two hearts that saw each other clearly in a universe too big for certainty, yet just small enough for connection. And that was more than enough.